Hello, everyone. So, welcome to another episode of WiTalks. This is episode 9. We are back after a 2 week hiatus, which some of you may have seen and participated in the WIT Spark conference. So that kept us busy, but we are back on track, and we have Lavanya Raghuraman with us in this edition of WIT Talks. So, welcome, Lavanya. I'll try to introduce you with some of the text, which I think sounds very high tech, but I'll take a stab at it. But am I audible, and can you see me? So to check.
Yes, Pratik. Thank you. Yes, I can hear you and see you.
Welcome. Good afternoon. So, for everyone joining us, Lavanya is an executive architect in the global government industry team in IBM and responsible for the development of digital transformation strategy and the technical solutions for government. She has around 17 years of experience with IBM, a total of experience of over 2 decades. She's a certified architect at thought leadership level in IBM and a member of IBM's Academy of Technology, which is AOT worldwide, and Technology Executive Council. She leads technical vitality and diversity initiatives in public sector in IBM India and is an active mentor for women tech professionals. So, welcome, Lavanya. Great to have you on board. How are you feeling? First of all, let us before I go into the conversation. How are you feeling coming on board today?
I'm really glad to be here joining you and the WTA audience today. And I think it's really a pleasure to talk to the audience about some of the cultural aspects. So thank you for having me here.
Great. So we do know that you work with a lot of people across borders, across countries and different tribes, and that is why when we were thinking about the session, we thought it's important to have those things being discussed. Given the fact, more so in current times, where we are only talking virtually, and some of those things which we possibly understood better about cultures, we are not able to do that in person. So before we go into that real thing, I think it's important for everyone joining us, to just understand a little more about you, your career. I mean, we don't have a lot of I would say women tech professionals who spend so much time and have grown. So it will be really interesting for us to just know from you, what has your career been, what all have you done, any interesting stories which you might feel you want to share with us while kind of giving us examples of your career. So yeah, that's what I would probably like to ask you first up.
Okay, sure. So I think you already gave a lot of introduction about me. So I will start with something, and this is not a cliched sentence. My entry into the technical world is actually by accident. So during my graduation, I was studying company law, income tax, and economics because I wanted to be a corporate secretary, the company secretary. And it was my dad who was more interested in computers, and he was nudging me to explore the world of technology. And he said, "Why don't you look into computers?" So that's how I started studying computers. And then I discovered that it's an absolutely fascinating world. So that's how it went on to be my passion. And then I started my career as a developer very organically. And IBM is my second company. I joined, yeah, as you said, about 17 years back. And all throughout, I had done a variety of technical roles across delivery, across technical pre-sales, as a client trusted advisor in a variety of roles. About 9 years back is when I started specializing in government industry. And that's also about the same time when I moved into a global role. So what I do is primarily work with the government industry clients. I've worked across a dozen countries, across 4 continents, and developing the last 3, 4 years at least, I've been focusing more on designing blockchain systems for some of the departments, developing the hybrid cloud strategy. So a variety of things under the digital transformation, which is a large canvas. And that, by the way, is just my day job. My personal passionate pet projects are the two things, which is to drive women in technology initiatives and patenting initiatives, which I do for my department in IBM India. So that's a brief of my journey in this industry.
So you sounded all the high tech stuff like blockchain and all of that, which people hear a lot these days. to understand as well. But so I'll pick up the fun stuff, and I don't by no means I'm saying that technology is not fun, but someone which kind of, so you said you work with a lot of countries, a lot of governments across countries. So in the pre-COVID times, you used to travel a lot. Was that something that you used to do a lot in terms of when you're interacting with these people? So tell
Absolutely.
so where so last 2 years, which of the countries have you extensively traveled? Last 3 or 4 years.
In the last few years, I've traveled extensively to Europe, particularly to Belgium, Amsterdam, and then those are the two countries I travel a lot. I've been to Norway. I used to travel a lot to the Middle East as well, to Dubai, Qatar.
Correct.
At some point when there was tension, I cannot go to Dubai and enter Qatar, so we had to be conscious of that. To also in Asia Pacific, to Singapore, to New Zealand.
Okay.
I think I don't have a count. I need to check my passports.
Okay.
Of
All right.
course, the US must.
That sounds real fun. Trust me. So you're really waiting for the pandemic to be over and get on the plane again. I'm hoping.
On the contrary, I enjoy not traveling right now, and of
Oh,
course, the
really?
pandemic want to get over. But yeah, so I do like to have some non-travel time. But yes, looking forward to getting back in action if possible.
So while it sounds all fun, Lavanya, that you're going there, all kind of meeting different people, but tell us a little more in terms of what exactly you do when you're kind of dealing with these countries, or dealing with governments specifically in these countries. What exactly would be the kind of interactions you have and the job that you're kind of doing? How does that pan out when you travel to these places?
Yeah. So my engagement with the different multicultural teams is primarily from the perspective of me being a global government industry architect. So what I do is, let's say if there is a complex government opportunity or a key engagement coming up to which we have to respond with a competitive technical proposal. I lead as the chief architect, so I join in. I go and work with the respective geography teams. We develop the strategy. What should be our strategy or solution for this client? What should be the technical choices which we should make? So that is one way where we are developing these solution strategies. The second things could be in the case of blockchain, it was purely a delivery of a system. So where I actually architect and design how the blockchain system should be, then we pilot it. So it's a development and a delivery to clients. And these are some of the live pilots that we had done for some of our Middle East and UKs. And the third way of engagement could be where, let's say that we are looking at a potential opportunity to advise our clients what is the best way for them to transform their core business. So then I work with a client or the local teams there. We sit down, we understand what's the pain point. I talk to the clients as well, and we see what could be the best strategy for them to move forward to solve whatever pain points they have. So if you see the crux of it or the common theme is technical. So I bring the architecture, the domain, government, industry knowledge, and also the technology knowledge. But the way you deliver it can be in different ways. Either you are actually building and delivering a system, or you are putting together a proposal, or you're consulting and giving advisory to the clients. So that's the kind of work I do.
Okay, fair. That sounds interesting. So, if I have to break it down a little bit for someone who doesn't understand technology and has to just understand that, what are the problems that you're solving? What is it that you're trying to solve through these interventions when you're working with the government? I know that we were having the chat before this, and you told me that you're trying to probably solve mass transportation problems, things like whatever the city planning and all those urban infrastructure and things like that. Those are some of the things that I got, but if I have to count on that, yes, technology is there to help. But what is it that you're trying to solve with these government folks in the more developed markets? Because all the countries that you mentioned are pretty much high end of the development spectrum. So, what kind of problems or the breakages that you're trying to solve there?
Okay, that's a good question. So the problems that we try to solve is essentially it could be improving any service that the government delivers for citizens. I have done a lot of work in the customs and immigration space. So, for example, it could be a problem of uh, are we letting the right persons to cross border and enter my country, or are there potential suspects who may be crossing the borders? How do we detect them, track them? That could be one way. Or it could be a transportation issue in terms of is this a safe vehicle to go on the road? Someone is met with an accident, so you kind of link everything back to see is there a proper driving license in place? Are there any other issues? So it could be the safety of the vehicle and the road safety, or it could be simply about a smarter city where you are managing all the different operations of the city itself. So it is all to do with the different government services, and depending upon the client or the department agency with whom we are working, it could be that. So sometimes we even are working with clients where there are some asylum or refugee related issues. So it could be different
Okay.
depending on the country. Yeah.
So now let me come back a little bit into not come back. Let me start on the cultural aspect a little bit. So, what is generally if again I'm just the reason why I asked you the countries where you've been recently is just to try to get a sense. So. I think apart from Singapore, all the other countries which you mentioned in terms of New Zealand or most of the countries in Europe, the demographics are pretty uniform in terms of the origin or the race, if I may say so. So, what is the typical, I would say, composition of the folks with whom you are meeting or trying to, understand problems? These must be, I'm assuming, technical experts in the government whom they would have contracted or in-house, you know. So, what is the general composition, and how does it feel for you as a South Asian woman to be in that room, kind of explaining technology to the guys who always probably would be, at the top of the value chain? So, how is it for you there?
So the composition of the teams, I will say, even though if you think of Europe, we think probably it's pretty homogeneous, but I don't think so. It is actually very diverse. It would have definitely. I do a lot of work with the technical team, so most of the guys in the room, and literally I mean most of them are guys in the room. If
Yeah.
I'll be very happy if I come across one a lady or here and there in the technical discussion, even in Europe. Uh, my personal view, I think we are actually doing better. So, anyways, I'll come back to that. So, the composition would be there's definitely different nationalities from different countries, different kind of technical specialists. So, I would actually have in the room a developer. If I have them in the room, it's not necessarily that they are quite junior. These are folks who might have done that role for years together, more than 20, 25 years, but they are a specialist in that. So different kind of technical folks and different age groups as well. As there has been instance where in a room I have a room full of technical people, all men, and everybody, probably some actually even have grandchildren, and I'm leading the technical solution and the discussion. So there is a lot of diversity in terms of the country, the languages, of course, and the age group and gender. So that's the kind of mix I see.
Give me examples. I'm sure it must have been very difficult in the beginning, right? Or not very difficult, but it would have been different, I would say. I mean, I remember, kind of working for the first time in a non-Indian group per se. And it was, I would say, it was different for me, and I was just trying to understand the subtleties. Give me some interesting, examples which you've come across where, it's just that being from different, part of the globe has just yeah, it just makes for an interesting conversation with someone whom you tell later. So give us those examples if you have any.
So I'll take it into two parts, right? So when this is something I personally experienced because I was obviously not quite familiar with different cultures when I initially moved into that global role. And over this almost a decade of working with multiple cultures, there are three things that I think stand out in a multicultural working setup. And I think these definitely it need not be only a different country. I think it could be relevant even within our country where we have so many
We have
kinds
so
of.
much diversity. Yeah, correct.
So the first thing is there are some cultures, and I think many of us might know folks from the Dutch folks, etc. There are some country people who are extremely forthright in voicing their opinion. It may be a point of view they have. You are in a team discussion, maybe you are the lead, but they have a different opinion than what you have. And they are very objective and brutally honest in voicing that out, which initially for me, even about 10 years back, now culturally we are conditioned to not really disagree, at least with your superiors. Maybe it's also common probably across South Asia. And in a professional environment, it's extremely important to voice out that opinion, even if it's a disagreement to your seniors, in a very objective way that I think differently. So that's something I found and I have learned. And of course, you pick up all these things. So the second thing I think is the experience versus title. Now, what I mean, I mentioned about um, countries where you can choose to be a developer or a tester, whatever that you do, or a specific technology, and you can simply work in that for years together. I can be just specializing in, let's say, some integration software for the last 20 years. But culturally, we tend to have that point of view that maybe after a few years, if you're still doing the same development or something, it's not looked at well and you're expected to move up and so on. So I think it's extremely important to give to value the expertise a person brings than the title. So that is something I
Correct.
learned, and I of course embrace that now. And the third thing is the importance to personal time, right? So I have had instances where an intern in the UK on a Friday, 5 o'clock, you are talking about something saying, I need to have this done. He will say, I'm sorry, I have a football match to go and see you on Monday, right? So I think it's also about being prepared, because when you are working, particularly in a multicultural environment, it's important to be conscious of these personal time versus vacation time. And I this is something, it was a shock even for me 2 years back. Despite working in a long spending time in global, there was another colleague. He told me if I'm out of office, put a message saying you are expected to resend your mail because I'm not going to come back and read the mail after I come from
Oh,
vacation.
wow.
You
Okay.
cannot send me mail when I'm on vacation. You have to resend the mail once I'm back. So, which was
Very
a
interesting.
revelation for me.
I think it will be interesting to look at out of offices of Indian folks when they're on holiday vis-a-vis, probably folks in a little more developed market. I mean, we usually put that I'm on leave and in case of urgency, please call me, even if though we are like, on an international travel, which is very different from what others put. In fact, I get reminded of my first instance like this. I remember I was in Sydney and I had to talk to one person something urgently, and I walked down to that person who was on a different floor. It was around 12:55, and I just said, you know what, I'll just around take 10 minutes of yours to discuss something I had. He said, no, let's block time. We'll probably do it day after tomorrow. I have my swimming coming up in 5 minutes. I said, okay, I'll wrap it up in 5 minutes. He said, like, no, no, let's do it in 10 minutes. But my swimming is more important. We can do this later. I think I told him it was urgent. So, which is why I kind of told him that, we can finish it off in 5 minutes. It was a consultation that I had to do. But that guy's swimming class was really more important in that time. So, kind of like, okay, I need to probably block time. So that was the first realization for me. And I think that is one of the ways, you kind of learn these. It's not just that personal time versus professional time, but a lot more other things that you keep
Correct.
learning. Yeah,
And
the one, go
there is
ahead.
one thing I also want to add, right? So, yes, there are these cultural differences, and there is no good or bad in that. But there are few things which always work. So, because you asked about being a South Asian woman, how do you navigate, right? Universally accepted values, things like being punctual, things like being focused on the quality of the work that you deliver, uh, things like being polite or courteous. These things universally work, irrespective of whether local or outside country. And that, I think, helps to build the credibility and respect of your professionalism. And this is something I actually experienced. If I were to go back, one example which really something I will remember for my life. So I talked about traveling to EU most of the time. So there was this one instance we were discussing and debating a very critical hybrid cloud strategy for a client. So I was leading that, and in this case, we had in the room our organization and a few other organization members as well. Everybody's senior to me, but I'm supposed to lead that discussion and come at a conclusion. There was this one gentleman, and he also had grandchildren, by the way. So he was having a lot of tough questions, and at some point, I thought it's probably coming a bit aggressively at me. But nevertheless, I tried to stick to the data points, and we eventually, at the end of 2 hours, we all arrived at the conclusion and had to make the necessary decisions. So that gentleman, he came up to me after the whole discussion was over and said that I want to admit that I actually thought you are quite young and probably you could be inexperienced. So that is why I was being very tough with you. But you are extremely objective. So keeping the emotions out is very, very critical. And these are qualities which will always help us in any setting. Doesn't matter whether it's a different foreign culture or not. And he said, he actually got lunch for me that day. So that's a different story. But
So
maintaining that professionalism and focusing on your communication and interpersonal skills really helps bridge these barriers, according to me.
So taking that forward, I think you obviously have spent a lot of time, across countries, and last 4 5 months have been sitting in one place and interacting, I guess, with the same folks. So how has it been different, given your experience and given the fact that you do understand all of these things already right now? There may have been instances where you're talking to someone new whom you would have not spoken earlier, extensive meetings discussing products or whatever solutions you're working on. How has it, virtual working been different? Has it made things more difficult for you or easier? Where do you think, you're one of the best persons whom I can ask this in terms of, a lot of people are saying that they are missing the interpersonal connect, those water cooler kind of conversations, those walking up and just going for a break, things like that. You are one person who is probably kind of traversing countries and talking to people in different places. How difficult slash easy has it been for you? But what are the challenges? Where do you see this whole thing coming together in the last 4 5 months?
In my view, I think it's a mix. If I start with the positive aspects, if you are reaching out to someone totally new now in any part of the world, you are guaranteed to have a common topic to start your conversation. How is the COVID cases in your area? So that's a good part, of course. And also a- in a subtle way, since many of them are not traveling from a business travel perspective, it all come down a lot. There is a slightly increased probability chance of you finding time with, let's say, someone who's extremely busy, some senior business or technical leader, whoever they are. There is a good chance that you're able to sneak in some time and get some audience with them. Only I would say these are the two positive parts. I definitely think the flip side of it is, see, in a discussion when you're having with a diverse set of people in a room, there are always a lot of non-verbal cues that you can pick up when you are in the room with the person. So someone is talking, there's somebody else who's not really saying anything, but you can see from the body language what's their opinion. That is something that I think we are missing. Yes, of course, you can turn on the videos, etc., and still talk. But I think, yeah, virtual can only take you so much closer. But those, particularly in a multicultural setup, the non-verbal cues or a side chat that you can have a coffee break between a heated discussion and get a sense. Those things are something I think is
So has it
not
made
possible.
things more? Yeah, has it made it more difficult for you? Like, or
Absolutely. In some
difficult?
cases, I wouldn't say in all cases, yeah, but
Okay, but again, like just hovering around the same issue. I think if I have to ask you, like in this kind of a setup, in which we are right now. How does, when you're there in person with someone, you get sensitized, you increase your cultural sensitivity by just being there and just picking up cues, as you said, and learning from others and what's good and what's not. How do you recommend we do this now, given the fact that it's just a voice, at best a video with a very straight face, because it's, I'm speaking to you right now. It's a very controlled environment. If there's something that flares up here, I probably might just switch off my video for some time and then come back. The things are normal. Or if I'm, yeah, whatever. So the point I'm trying to come is that in this kind of a setup, how does one really, kind of up their learning curve in terms of cultural sensitivity when it comes to talking to people at different cultures?
I think this is a favorite quote which I picked from my mentor, Sugandha, and she normally used to say that give benefit of doubt. I think in this scenario, when we are virtually working and interacting with multiple cultures, you got to all the more consciously give the benefit of doubt to the other person, because for whatever reasons, maybe you are expecting that person to show up and they didn't show up. It's very hard to gauge the situation they are in. I have one of my colleague in Sweden, and sometimes he's taking a call sitting in a park with the kids because his wife had to go to work, or he's actually biking because he cannot really miss biking. So there are these different reasons, whatever compulsions they have. So it's very important you give that benefit of doubt. And I think it is also necessary at this point to be more accepting of a little bit of imperfection, right? So it's okay if some. Of course, we have a lot of jokes about cooker whistles going on, at least in this part of the world. But in the other side, if there is imperfections, people are not able to turn on the video, or there are some issues there. Each country, by the way, is in a different level of the COVID journey, first of all. And since you are working virtually, I think you need to be also a bit more let go of certain imperfections, and as long as the work is not impacted, catch up differently. So I think these cultural sensitivities are necessary in a cross country work setup where you are, all the more in a remote work during the pandemic phase. I think we need to be more human and not be very punishing.
Yeah, that's fairly good. I mean, yeah, we kind of be aggressive, and we're in that same mode of working, like 10 hours, 12 hours a day. And I think it's just time to just be a little more caring and adjusting of what the other person is doing. I've had cases where yes, I mean it's normal for kids to come up when you're kind of having things. They don't know what's going on, or there's something going on in the background.
I'll
So
tell
that's,
you a secret.
yeah.
Today, literally, my husband has taken my kids, dumped them in a car, and said, "Let's go far away." I have a younger one. Otherwise, usually he comes, he's very curious, and he wants to see to whom I'm talking to. I just have to let him come see the video, and he goes away. He doesn't disturb, right? So, and I think personally, this is also another way where you bridge the cultural barrier, because when you see someone in a certain community or a cultural context, you always have a bit of distance. But when you connect with an individual, forget their country and culture, you see them in the context of an individual or a family or whatever that context. I think the differences become much smaller, and there is a better connect and working rapport.
Yeah, yeah. So as we're getting some comments flowing in, and as Anamika very rightly puts it, you to be accepting of your imperfections of the others with whom you're talking. So that's really beautiful. Before I move on to my set of questions, I would actually ask one from which comes from Prikshit. He says he's thrilled to listen to such relatable experiences. He had a query on the, like, in the digital workspace. Is it easier to approach in the digital workspace? It is easier to approach a senior, especially whose image has always been strict or uptight. But conversing over text may lead to confusions as well. How do you diffuse such situations where somebody mistook your mail text over something else? So I think we all suffered through this earlier. If there was a difference, we would probably go up to the person. He said, "Listen, buddy," or "Listen, boss," or "Sir." We will just probably clear that out. And now it's getting increasingly difficult because you're not there. again, this kind of ties down to a lot of experiences we also feel in India because we are pretty diverse, right? So that cultural, I would say, sensitivity, it's already ingrained in us given the fact that we are so diverse. But even then, that part is missing where you, if you had a difference or if you had certain kind of issues, you would probably go walk up and clear that out. You can't do that anymore. You will probably have to wait for an opportune moment and things like that. How would you suggest for someone who's probably facing that issue?
It is a very, very valid question, and I'll tell you there is no perfect answer to it. Even at least, let's say if it's a different team in other part of India, worst case maybe you can just call up outside office hours and just have a chat. If it's your colleague, now in the case of a senior, I think that brings the point of being very trying to be careful or conscious about the communication. I will say one thing which I learned is the written communication is extremely important because words can be interpreted. You might have meant in a certain tone, the other person
Right.
could interpret it in a different way. So
Agree.
yes, I sometimes if you think a senior or a strict person has misinterpreted it or understood it differently, maybe try to reach them out if possible via any other channel. Usually I will not recommend you doing a WhatsApp to a person because many people see WhatsApp as a personal communication unless you have been explicitly told, yes, you can reach out to me over that, right? So maybe if he or she is someone who you also can reach out to as a SME or as a mentor, try to find that one-on-one time if possible, so that at least you can get a gauge of if there is any issue. You can see there is no replacement to actually talking things over and sorting it out, right? So as many you can fire 100 more mails and don't
Yeah.
mess up further. So try and get the one-on-one time if possible and clear it out directly. But yeah, also pay attention to your communication. Reread your mails many times before you send. That's also
Can't be
important.
interpreted any other way. I think one of my bosses once told me that if there is an issue and it cannot be solved in three or four mail exchanges, you better pick up the phone and start talking because then that three or four, maybe 15 or 20, but you will still not solve the problem. So
Yeah,
it's better.
exactly. Absolutely.
Cool. So while we have more, kind of comments coming in and questions coming in, I'll just probably want you to, do a bit of crystal ball gazing. I mean, you are from where you are, from your vantage point, you're speaking to a lot more people in different countries and understanding the situations. And I think, given the work you do, you are talking to people who are a part of the government. They obviously are the ones who are probably at the front end of the problem, trying to control things, wherever we are. And some of the developed countries have led the way. New Zealand, for instance, was one of the countries that you're mentioning. I mean, I was talking to a friend there last week, and they're all going back to work. They're all good there. They're just going back to restaurants and eating out. So it's a different journey for each of the countries. What I wanted to understand from your vantage point is that where do you see things going from here for your industry, for the tech industry? I know everyone is saying tech is a great enabler and it's kind of solve problems, but given that you're seeing someone who has finished probably their COVID journey, someone probably in the peak of it, someone who's probably starting off, where do you think things are heading and what does it mean for your industry?
This is my personal point of view,
Yes,
and
obviously.
I will sum it up as just in one phrase that not just because I work in this, I think every country, the digital transformation acceleration is really going to progress much faster. Just think about it in a very practical way. Any business, any forget whether it's a government, private sector, their biggest issue is now first I want to keep my things running, my business running, even if people are not in the office or in the factory and so on. Which means the first thing is if they already have done, let's say, an IT adoption, they want to have that business continuity going on. So that there are a number of clients across the world who are actually looking at a remote data center. Can I do a switchover, etc. So business continuity is extremely important, number one. Number two, I personally had stopped going to my bank a long time back in person. And now every single business wants to have or will plan to have the digital form of engagement with their customers. so that you don't have to go to your bank. We'll understand you have a Swiggy, and everything is going to be digital, including digital puja and whatnot, right? So at least in Bangalore, we have been doing that from some time. We have not seen a pandit in person. So the digital channel of way of reaching out to your customers is going to increase for sure. And the third thing is, even each of us as an individual, I think will have more of adoption of the digital forms. I'll give a very simple example, and this yardstick for this is my newspaper vendor. That guy, doesn't matter irrespective of demonetization or not, never took payment in anything other than cash. He only wanted cash. Right after the lockdown got over, he came and he stood obviously literally 20 feet away and said, he gave me a menu option, Paytm, GPay, don't give me cash, you pay, I don't want to touch cash, I will catch coronavirus. So just imagine at the grassroots level, there is going to be each of us as an individual, the digital adoption is going to go more. Overall, I do see this as a very, very positive trend for the IT industry. Of course, there are other ways we will have the impact. That's one. Now, the second natural repercussion of it, right? Let's say everything goes on digital. What happens? You are going to see a very different way of securing systems, thus establishing the identity. A lot of shakeup or advancements in the cyber security because you need to be able to allow people work. So I think these are natural repercussions that will happen in according to me. And the last point I would say is there is going to be much more of contactless, paperless way of running things. Whatever industry, whatever business you are, without contact, without paper, I want to run my business. I think that's how I see this whole
Social
thing going.
distancing everywhere, like in all forms. So just on that cue, I mean, we have a few questions coming in, and I'll go to them. But Anuranjita, who's the founder, she asks, from whatever we were just talking right now, that given that everything is going so digital and that is the way forward, WIT India works in this space in terms of identifying, nurturing talent for different, tech companies across the country. And why is it so difficult and to just find good talent? I mean, when it comes to such wide scale acceptance, India has been at the forefront. But when it comes to finding, and especially in the cases for women, and kind of is a more systemic problem. But do you feel is there there is a dearth for good talent, especially in women when it comes to tech in India?
Uh, I don't agree with that fully, that there is a shortage of talent in finding technical women practitioners. What the challenge is that we do have a lot of bright, young, talented women in the workforce. But unfortunately, what is very natural, which happens is there are the folks dropping out of the IT workforce because of the career breaks they may have to take due to maternity, relocation, or whatever, family care, elder care. So the challenge comes at that midpoint. And so the solution, in my view, which I think different companies and organizations are trying to solve that problem, is the workforce reintegration after that break. And I think this will change because now whether you are moving to a smaller tier city, so everybody doesn't have to live in the 5 or 6 big cities in India. So let's say you have moved to a small 2 tier a place in India for a break or whatever reason. You actually can even presume your work because now remote work is much more accepted. So personally, I think it will change over a period of time, but the challenge lies in the workforce reintegration when people take break and not really finding talented people, which I think there are many. And with the right level of mentoring and nurturing, so talent again has to be looked at through a lens of whether it's only just a technical talent or maybe some of the other soft skills as well. So I think with in-house mentoring, if you can address some of those skills with reintegration of workforce, I think this problem could be solved. But yeah, we do have some work to do there.
Yeah, so I think that's a separate topic, and that can probably go on for
Yeah.
hours. true on that front. But interesting that you mentioned about people working remotely and from any of the smaller locations, because Milan's question here is something to kind of pretty much in sync with that, where she says that I'm curious, as the time has changed, we are expected to see less cross cultural interactions in the organizations. Now this could be within the country. I mean, I know Bangalore is like a melting pot in terms of culture. You have all over, people from all over the country. Same goes on with some of the metro cities across the world, where you have people coming from all over the world. So even as in India, we are talking about vocal for local, and a lot of states are trying to integrate the migrant workforce that has gone back into those states, and giving employment to them. A lot of countries probably would follow suit and see to develop those expertise, locally. So how do you see that particular part playing in terms of separate entities, be it states, be it cities, be it countries, equipping themselves to be self-sufficient? And does that really kill that cross-cultural, the charm of that whole part where we're learning about different folks and different things? Is that the way forward, really? Because that would be really boring.
I definitely don't think so. See, there are a lot of dynamics can change where uh, you are able to set up maybe new businesses and get more workforce from remote parts of any country because they are just able to work virtually. But that doesn't mean that we will get into our silos and say each state or country will just transact amongst themselves. Of course, these are ongoing, I will say, outlook each country or government have in terms of balancing their domestic versus the global trade and business and so on. But I really don't think we will ever go back and away from globalization. I think, in fact, I think it could go the other way around, right? So just imagine that even if I take government industry, it is one of the industry where the acceptance for employees to work remotely, I think, is quite low because irrespective of the part of the world, a government employee goes to office and work. Most of them, I'm not saying all of them, but even they are now encouraging more of remote work for their employees, obviously because the machinery cannot stop. You have to continue. So what that means to us, to IT industry, even they as long as you have secure ways of delivering to them, that they would actually be open to the idea of some work being done from a different country or a place, as long as it complies with the regulation. So I don't think it will go to this way. Probably it might go the other way, that you have more chance of reaching out to the part which you didn't tap before.
Okay. So to that extent, if I may say so, that we did mention that, yes, I mean, you mentioned that globalization will continue, the interactions will continue, but you will also see the advent of doing business without getting with social distancing in place. And social distancing is not just about being in office. It is about traveling and going to different places and interacting in person. So the question that Anamika and Meeta kind of ask is related to that, where they're saying that how can we recreate those water cooler moments, or have those social relationships intact, and have those conversations. Is it because it's kind of what Meeta says, that in the current working environment with all the virtual and the AI things and the things we're trying to do, we are really losing the human touch. So it's kind of it's a double-edged sword. It is giving us benefits right now in the current environment, but we also badly miss what we have been used to doing all our lives. So where is the balance, and where do we find the right thing, that we don't contract the disease, but we also don't miss out on those interactions with people whom we loved and care about.
That is so true. I can vouch for it. I never thought in my life I will say this line, that I really miss the Bangalore traffic and going to my office. But yeah, I think both personally and from an organization culture point of view, I think a lot of chai pe charcha or having a lot of team connects are happening consciously because of the very reason that we are not in office and meeting people. So at least. I can vouch that in our organization, there is number of touch points. So we have formally set up a team, chit chats, and including anybody can wander around in the family in the background. And informally also we have our, okay, let's have a WhatsApp call, or let's have a Friday, sit with a cup of tea or
Right.
coffee. So I think the best, both formally and informally, we are trying to stay connected. I think that is extremely important. And yeah, of course, just pray for this whole thing to get away so we can go and see each
That's the
other in.
last resort. Like when everything fails, let's just kind of keep praying. But Sanjana asks us a question which I think you kind of slightly touched upon, and it's very relevant right now, given that we have seen a series of Twitter attacks and bots taking over and things like that. We at Wit India had our fair share of data issues, but the point which we are, what I think what Sanjana is trying to come up with is that the more we go digital, be it in terms of our work, our identity, bank accounts, transactions, whatnot, everything, like, so much data online. Where is the protection coming in? I mean, we don't hear as much about cybersecurity as I think we should probably. There is work happening in this space. But certainly, I do not hear a lot about the cutting edge work that is happening in this space. It's happening probably in silos, in some closed rooms with government and certain organizations. But for me as a consumer, at the end of the day, we had a host in one of our bit talks, and I'll just elaborate that a little more. He was the founder of one of a hacking company, an ethical hacking company, and he was a cybersecurity expert. And we asked him the question about what do you think is a way to keep our data or keep our information secure online? And he says, the best way you can do it is to not post it there. So anything you put online, you just be sure that it can be, accessed by anyone. So plan for the worst, hope for the best. That doesn't give me a lot of surety. I know someone who's data security expert saying that. So what are your thoughts on
I think couple of things. The way I look at it is, there is and there will be a lot of innovation in that space. Actually, this morning I was talking to someone. He has his own office, and earlier they had biometrics authentication. Obviously, now it can't be contact based, and now they are going to reinstall the security systems, the physical security in their office, where it will authenticate face recognition with a temperature check. So if you have a fever, the door will not open. I'm telling you, the innovation will happen, and it is already happening. And this is something, it's not a fiction. They're actually installing it in their office. That's on one part. So the second part, I think, coming from data protection, cybersecurity, I don't think this is going to dramatically change. And what I mean by that is there is responsibility on both sides, both as a entity or an organization who's providing a digital service to its clients. It's extremely important to protect the data, and that's where a whole bunch of continuous evaluation keeps coming, right from GDPR to every possible thing. There is a responsibility on the business, but that also places a responsibility on us as an individual. If I, as an individual, don't care about and have the basic awareness of what I post, and I post my bank account number and Aadhaar card number and another bunch of things, and I just blame the other business, I think it's not fair. And it holds true in any walk of life, right? I think the awareness has to increase, and it is a responsibility of both the regulatory authorities, not both, the regulatory authorities, the business, and the individual. I think it's a collective responsibility. Awareness and the way you handle things will come together where you are able to protect. I think that's a shared responsibility.
So, I mean, I'm like, if Barack Obama's account can be hacked, I'm pretty sure everyone else is, mere mortals when it comes to, data security. So, I was really amused by what happened there, and the funny part was that I don't know if you were following that news, but that Twitter
The
hack,
Bitcoin one, right?
yeah, it actually made for whoever the hackers were around 100,000 US dollars, which is pretty incredible for one hack. So I do have.
But on this part, on that part, I'll also question the person who saw the tweet and actually transferred monies, right? That's where I talk about individual responsibility as well. You
Yeah,
need,
so US had its Jamtara moment there, so it's okay. And we were talking about it. You said that the world is full of people who are ready to be conned in that, and people will, kind of do it if it's coming from someone senior. So I think yes, I think you've touched both parts. Where yes, while we have to secure that, the individuals also have to be more aware and not,
yeah.
just quote something for that blindly. I wanted to ask you a couple of fun questions before I go into my last one. Probably we have 10 minutes more, but what's your favorite country amongst all the places you?
Absolutely, without doubt, New Zealand.
Okay, and why is it so?
It's, I think, like how we have Kerala here, God's own country. I think it's a very, very naturally beautiful country. I spent a few months in Wellington, and unfortunately, for work purposes, I have one of my bucket lists that someday I want to go on a personal vacation and visit New Zealand. It's a very, very beautiful country. If you love nature, you will enjoy that country.
Okay, great. So, I mean, I agree with you as well on that. Having been there and traveled there extensively, I think it's one of the most beautiful places on earth I've been. Favorite airline?
Okay, favorite airline of all those that I had traveled, I think Etihad Emirates is okay. It's definitely better than others. Let's put it that way.
Okay. You cannot, I won't ask you what's the worst airline because I think I'll expect some standard answers.
I will choose not to comment.
Okay. So just coming back on this one, and I mean, it's very glamorous. It's very, I would say, inspiring for a lot of people listening in that you travel so much, you go to different countries. A lot of people want to do that, and if there is a job that takes them, to all the beautiful places on the earth, what better than that? So you're doing something you love, and you're seeing the world. So that's great. But I wanted to just draw back the attention in terms of just the formative steps. I mean, we do have a lot of women with whom we engage through our forum who are trying to build a career, who are probably taking their baby steps in it. It's so. My question to you is more around what would be your advice to them? What would be, I would say, someone who has seen it for over 2 decades, the goods, the bads, the highs and the lows. I mean everything. What would you be telling someone who is trying to make a career right now in tech, trying to come up with hurdles, not just on the work front, which is the technical point, but also the personal, hurdles which you come across as a woman across your career?
Okay, so I think I can definitely add my 2 cents based on my experience because um, personally, I've also had two career breaks. When I had my two children, I had come back all while I was working in IBM. And coming to the technical part, right? So, as a career, and this is irrespective of gender, I think whichever area you're working on and specializing in, uh, definitely build that depth, but also be conscious and learn about the adjoining areas. Now, I'll give an example, right? So many times we see people in a silo. So if you, let's say you're a developer or you are specializing in DevOps or whatever area that you're working on, also look at the surrounding area. So if you are a developer, we have the philosophy of site reliability engineering. What that states is whatever you build needs to be operated by somebody. So a developer is supposed to think how someone would operate it, and is you bring in the concepts of the health checks and observability capabilities so that somebody is building it, but somebody is able to observe the health of it and monitor. So this is just an example. Or if you are a hardware specialist, now the direction is going where it is infrastructure as code. So you need to start thinking or understand better in terms of the software architecture and design because everything is changing and becoming a software. So this is something I will say from a long term perspective as well. Whatever area you work on, pick one area, specialize, but definitely have that understanding of the surrounding areas if possible, develop skills so that you are able to expand your wings and have a much larger picture. That is number one. The second thing is a successful technical career can never be built just on technical skills. Soft skills are extremely important for you to grow and be differentiated. And variety of them. So each one of us have some strength in terms of soft skills and a few areas to improve. So it is very important for us to understand and first of all be aware. And this is where I say having a number of mentors helps a lot, because the way we see ourselves versus the way others see it. So the combination of the soft skills and technical skills really gives a much stronger base for any professional to go. But now coming to women in tech in particular, because there are some unique challenges, like I said, where it is a fact there is an increased demand on their time where they need to spend time, take care of household stuff, whatever it is, or be it breaks. Now, personally, for me, what had helped was the ability to work remotely and some flexible working hours, at least during those critical phases in your life. Maybe there is an elderly person care, right? So I think ask for it, have a candid conversation in your organization or the team lead, whomever you're working with, and try and get that support. And I would also say to the organizations, if they are able to give it, it's something that I have to admit. I got this fantastic support, and we have a system in IBM which enabled me to come back 2 times and continue my career. So I think that special additional support is needed for women in those crucial periods in their life so that they are able to grow in their career. This also goes back to that talent problem, right? So talent is there, just give them that
Correct.
little bit support so they can come back.
Perfect. I think that was great. So I think we kind of understand the problem statement, which is the fact that we have to get women back in. It's obviously working on a lot of their motivation levels, and we continue to have those conversations within our group as well. But yes, we do understand that the support group that you have, both personal and in the professional setup, is extremely important when you have to make
Yeah.
women like you successful and who's had a long, fruitful career. So thank you so much, Lavanya. I think we're just on time, the top of the hour. It was really a good conversation. Thank you for being so candid, telling us a few things about yourself which we didn't know earlier, and giving us a lot of insights. We really appreciate you taking out time and joining us for a conversation here. And we wish you the best, in your career going forward. And we wish we were associated with you going forward as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and thanks to everyone who joined, taking their time out for this session. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lavanya.
Thanks. Bye.